Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspada Anashranpannotibhis Siddhasadanam Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Om Shiva 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhetamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat. Today, we will continue the discussion on the fourth shloka of the 5 shloka text Sadhana Panchakam. The fourth shloka goes like this: Kshudyadhischa Kshudyadhischa Chikitsatam Pratidinam Bhikshaushadham Bhujyatam Swadvannam Natu Yachyatam Vidhivashat Praptena Santushyatam Vidhivashat Praptena Santushyatam Audasinnyamabhipsyatam Janakripa Naishturyamutssrujyatam Shitoshnadi Vishahyatam Natu Vritha Vakyam Samucharyatam. We saw that. The last two Upadeshas we have to see. The last class we saw Audasinyam Abhipsyatam Janakripa Naishturyamutssrujyatam. We saw in the last class. So I will go through the translation of these. This stanza refers to the lifestyle of a renunciate who is committed to being, who is committed to living in a way that facilitates perfect jnana nishta or being established in the self knowledge. Right. It talks about the relationship with one's body, one's practical physical needs, hunger and thirst, etc., and one's relationship with the society as a mendicant, as a renunciate, how one conducts oneself in the society, sannyasi, sannyasa dharma, which is the lifestyle that is most suitable for self knowledge, for perfect abidance in self knowledge, according to the tradition, according to the acharyas. If one cannot be a renunciate, one can take inspiration from this and see what is the point of this and try to imbibe that attitude in a way that is interpreted for a person in an active life. A renunciate pratidinam bhikshaushadam bhujyatam. Every day have the medicine for hunger, the food called bhiksha. Okay. You eat, beg for your food and eat. And while begging, don't expect or ask for, not even expect. Don't ask for is obvious, and it also indicates do not even expect for tasty food, because this person might have lived a good life, Usually, only a successful and a very intelligent person comes to Vedanta because he is or she, no, that the she doesn't come here for enunciate, because he does not find the ultimate happiness in active outward life pursuing all the other purusharthas. So he has taken to sannyasa ashrama for the sake of perfecting the realization in self, right? In line with the recommendation by the Shastra and the tradition. So the old habits die hard. The mind, as a grihastha, as a householder, might have been used to having a nice food, tasty food, variety, and all that. So, but when you are going as a mendicant, you have to eat what is given by the people. And you are, and I have discussed the, the different rules for Paramahamsa sannyasis, etc., where you are not supposed to beg for food for more than 3 houses. You have to go and beg only after the noise of the world has come down. So it is not an easy life to be a proper sannyasi. All that we have discussed in the past classes. So these points may not be relevant for most of you, but what we take from here is the pointer is not being actively engaging with the body and the senses and the demands of the body and the senses. Dealing with the body only to the extent of survival and basic health and not bothering about it too much. And engaging with the society only to the extent of absolute necessity of survival plus working out the prarabdha karma. As long as the body is alive, one cannot be alone. That's what is the, even you try, you cannot be totally alone. You cannot be totally inactive. So even for a person who has given up, it is being discussed in, in the Bhagavad Gita commentary by Shankaracharya also, that even one who has given up the Vedic karma, the mandatory religious actions, religious karma, the religious duties one has given up, the duties prescribed for a person from the Veda, from the Shruti, the Karma Kanda is given up. Even then, even if a person is a sannyasi, one has to go around and beg for food. Minimal action for the upkeep of the body cannot be given up. So, giving up of action is not simply physical stillness. To convey that point, in when Bhagavan Shri Krishna is explaining Karma Yoga, he says, no matter who you are, whatever you do, you cannot totally give up action. The point is not giving up action, but giving up the attitude of being the doer, understanding that you are not the doer. That is why it says, uh, seeing action in inaction and inaction in action. The one who sees that is the one who truly sees, right? And that is the way for liberation. Like that, it comes. So, what we understand from here is two things. The life of a sannyasi is not meant for social service. That's why Janakripa Naishturya Musrujyata. Give up compassion and it is not something like a bad treatment. Hard feeling. Naishturyam means kripa is compassion. Naishturyam means some kind of dislike and disgust, an attitude of um, the attitude and expression of negative emotions of any kind. Naishturyam. Utsrujyatam, give up. So don't expect people to behave towards you in a respectful way all the time. It may not happen. And don't expect people to have compassion on you. It may not happen. So whether people are nice to you or people are not so nice to you or hostile to you, don't worry about it. Give up that expectation of specific behavior. Also, you give up practicing excessive compassion towards people and going and solving all their problems, and also indulging in negative feelings towards adharma and other things in the society. Basically, don't mess with society. Don't be an active participant in social stuff. I have heard about in wandering monks. They used to live outside the village, right? So inside the village, there will be all kinds of politics, rivalry, hatred, fights, all that. No, but the sannyasi will not bother. Everybody will respect the sannyasi. Only when they want to resolve something, they will come to him for an advice and ask something. He will say, and the sannyasi will not take any sides. He will only advise based on what the dharma says, what is right according to dharma, and neutral. So they go to him for advice. But there may be a sannyasi living in a cave or something outside the village, who lives on alms. Village people come and give. This happens a lot in the mountain villages near the Himalayas, and they live their lives. The monk is there with his practice and with his sadhana and with his study and contemplation and all that. He does not bother them, they don't bother him. Unless otherwise they need some advice or teaching or blessing, they don't bother the monk. So it is an entire social phenomena that has been nurtured over millennia in Uttarakhand. In South India, especially in Tamil Nadu, it is gone. I don't know about Kerala. I think the same thing there also. But in very old-fashioned traditional societies, in villages and all that, uh, usually they don't, they don't expect the Swami to participate in everything and all. So here we are talking about wandering mendicants who are alone. We are not talking about Swamijis who have established ashrams and are sitting in the middle of the town and cities, and engaging a big crowd and all that. So then these ashrams, they are very participating in whenever there is a natural disaster. For example, Shivananda ashram arranges for a lot of aid and everything, and they're very actively engaged in educating the children, medical care, and a lot of good work happens. So but that is not what is being talked about here. I'm not telling whether that is right, wrong, and all that, but what the Shastra says, what Sri Shankaracharya ji says, what the master says, as a lifestyle of a monk that is meant for perfecting the knowledge, in that one engages with society to the barest minimum, both physically and psychologically. That is the essence of this whole thing. So we saw in detail about Janakripa, Naishturya, Mutsutyam, Audasim, Adhikchatam, practice indifference and all that. We saw it in detail in the last class. Now the next two things comes. Sitoshnadi Vishahyatam. Learn to endure the pairs of opposites like cold and hot. Shita, Ushna. Shita means cold. There is a pranayama called Shitali. It's supposed to be a cooling pranayama, they say. So basically, when you are doing the pranayama, you feel cool inside the mouth and throat and all that. So it's Shitali. Okay. And Shitoshna means cold and heat. Adi, etc. Like that. Basically, it refers to all the pairs of opposites referred to as Dvandva. Dvandva means the pairs of opposites. It is not only physical heat and cold, it is also emotional, mental, and intellectual. In every level of human experience, there are pairs of opposites. If you think a little bit, For example, Jana Kripa, Naishturyam. Kripa, Naishturyam, pairs of opposites. Two different kinds of attitudes from people and attitude towards people, right? Compassionate attitude or a disgust filled or a rejecting attitude. These are two different attitudes. One is not supposed to encourage either. So when we receive a compassionate attitude from a person, there is a pleasant interaction. There is a pleasant interaction, and when one receives a disdainful or a rejecting attitude, the experience is unpleasant. So it is an emotional, positive and negative. Why these points are being given? No? Brahmasmi idi vibhavyatam aharahar garva parityajyatam visa. Uh, be established in the meaning of I am Brahman. Right? Live the meaning of I am Brahman, Brahmasmi iti vibhavyatam. And every day give up the habitual error of the individuality asserting itself, Garva Parityajyatam in all kinds of ways. Okay, all that we saw already. So, in that case, then why is this being given? Because we are talking about the practical experience of physical and natural reactions that might come from the body and the pranic body and the emotion and the mind, which is not listening to the buddhi. See, every time when we try and be devoted to one practice, there are obstacles. There are obstacles from inside us, there are obstacles from the outside around us, and then there are natural, unaccountable obstacles, what we call as Adi Atmika, Adi Bhautika, Adi Daivika. In every undertaking, there can be these obstacles. That is why we make a prayer, Shanti mantra, pray to Ganesha, and all that to keep the obstacles to the minimum. Right? So every text begins with a Mangalacharanam so that the text can be completed without obstacles. Right? So all that we have. Now, having trained our attitude to be in line with the knowledge, there are biorhythms in the body which are there for protection of the body, where the opposites develop forbearance and endurance for the pairs of opposites like heat and cold, pain and pleasure, pleasant and unpleasant, um, pleasant and unpleasant. Happiness and sorrow does not arise in this case because this person is a jnani. There is no happiness and sorrow. It is always equanimity. So that is. So I'm talking about pleasant and unpleasant, comfortable, uncomfortable, right? All this dvandva. Now, this does not mean vishakyatam means bear them. It means titiksha. Titiksha is to be understood as not giving up the natural defenses of the body. It is not making your body and mind numb. That is not being talked about here. What is being talked about is not to lose one's center and balance and the commitment to the knowledge and to renunciation and the commitment to giving up the attitude that I am the body, giving up the I am the body idea, giving up the identification with the body, creating the identity from the body. To give up that is a commitment. Deheham matiruchyatam, we saw in the previous shloka. How to do that? So, Every time you experience the pairs of opposites, it becomes an opportunity for de-identifying from the body. There are two things happening here. One, there is a body signal which is coming, which is for the sake of preservation of the body, preservation of life. The prana and the indriyas, they get disturbed because of the heat and cold. So when it is cold, you make yourself warm so that you don't get hypothermia. When it is too hot, you cover yourself or go to the shade so that you don't get a sunstroke or get excessively dehydrated. Now, it is not you are not expected to give up this. Take certain minimal care for the sake of survival and health, and beyond that, don't over exert yourself to keep the body comfortable or keep your emotional side comfortable. If it is uncomfortable, it is uncomfortable, and use that situation for practicing vairagya and for de-identification with the various sense of self that arises based on the body and the psychosomatic body, the emotional body, etc. Don't go out of the way to correct everything and make yourself comfortable. There is a point where it's a thin line that divides, where there is a thin line that divides necessary from comfortable. Right? There are these, if you go to Kumbh Mela, there is a great festival called Kumbh Mela, where thousands and thousands of sadhus, lakhs of sadhus will come, and they will take bath in the Ganges and all that. Right? So in that, there is a lot of a display of people who are committed to tapasya, naga sadhus and all that. They're very focused on tapasya, on austerities. So you'll see one monk or a yogi, sitting on a bed of nails doing padmasana, and another person will be, uh, dragging some big rock with his jata, with his matted hair. All kinds of acrobatics and endurance things, which are all kinds of acts, demonstration, which are representative of the power of austerity and tapasya and self-control and all that, will be demonstrated by various renunciates and yatis, yogis from various ashrams. So that it's part of the culture. That's all right, and it is also used for collecting donations for the ashram and all that. So it's fine. Now, what we are talking about here is not to go and put yourself on a bed of nails. You don't have to go and put yourself on a bed of nails to lie down every night. This Swami lies down in the bed of nails. That is not being talked about here. At the same time, don't go out of the way to make sure that you will have the perfect orthopedic bed to sleep on. If there is a little bit of cold, that is not, not very, you are not very cozy and comfortable. But at the same time, nothing is happening that will endanger your health. No? So to that extent, you take care. So to understand the thin line that separates absolute necessity from excessive comfort, there is a point when you cross, it goes into the zone of comfort, it crosses the zone of necessity and gets into the zone of comfort. So we can translate this as gradually develop the endurance in order to live within the zone of necessity and try to stop actively seeking comforts, creature comforts. We can take it like that, especially for us. And this is a certain practice that we will have to start right away when we are young. No, it doesn't come. Suppose if you are, let's say, if you have lived a very luxurious life and you were a top executive, you traveled only first class and only in Mercedes Benz, and like everything is perfect. And suddenly, one fine morning, you understood the importance of all that, and you went studied some Vedanta. you become a sannyasi. Now you cannot expect the entire setup to follow you. You may not. In fact, you should not. Then what happens? The body that is completely used to all these comforts cannot live the life of sannyasa properly. So what they do, if the guru is a good guru, they will put this person through a transition period. It's called vanaprastha. Vanaprastha is the transition period in those days. So the equivalent now can be something like a retreat life where the person goes through practice of hatha yoga and some austerity, tapasya, some very austere Spartan lifestyle and all that, and deconditioning and reconditioning the system. Now that has to happen at least in some kind of a decent age, around middle age, at least the latest. If one is already 75 or 80 years old, this cannot be done and should not be recommended. So then one is given what is called as, there are types of sannyasa called kutichaka and all that, where one stays close to its original setup but not involving in anything but completely devoted to study and contemplation. Kutichaka sannyasa, bahudaka sannyasa, and all that is there. One goes and stays in near the river bank or but has a setup like a house and some basic comforts. One is not expected because that person is not capable of extreme austerity. There are versions of renunciate lifestyle that cater to these people. So one has to go according to that. But if one really wants to be able to live like a true renunciate for very deep commitment to the self knowledge and complete freedom from body and mind, and in order to master the deeper levels of samadhi, etc., one has to prepare the body and the mind from the stage of youth itself, right from one's 20s at least. If you are from your teens, if you are like that, excellent, but at least from the 20s 30s, if one starts practicing, if it is not very ice cold, not all the time going for a warm shower. If you are sick, of course you should take a warm shower, but if you're not sick, not trying to test the limits of the body, not looking for comfort all the time. I know one group of yogis, their ashram is in South India, it's called Siddha Vidyarthis. They have a kind of food called Satini, where whatever you give, they will put everything on the same plate and mix everything together and then eat from that, so that they don't distinguish separate tastes. That is one kind of austerity they practice. I heard that Buddhist monks are supposed to practice like that. They have one begging bowl. So whatever people offer, they put inside that and just eat and don't bother about the right combinations. First sambar rice, then some rice, and then payasam, then then curd rice, and then like what you call in the West, entree and main course, dessert. No, nothing like that. Where everything goes in the same bowl, mix and eat. Uh, it's not nice at all, but it is enough. No, nothing. Then you will have problems with Ayurveda. No, Ayurveda says this type of food and that type of food should not be mixed and all that. So what happens nowadays is when people come to spiritual life, yoga and all that, there is an excessive kind of importance given to eating properly, but that goes too much, that goes too much into a kind of a fastidiousness, very choosy and um, very involved in all the little details. And then on top of that, now because of social media, we get one scare alert for every food every day in your feed. Today they say coconut oil is bad, tomorrow they say coconut oil is good. Suddenly, all your food grains are useless. You have to bring quinoa from Peru and eat that. You've been eating, and suddenly all the milk is bad, and then suddenly all the honey is bad. And one fine morning, honey is good. Only this honey is good, the other honey is bad. Then one guy comes and says, "You, where will you get your protein?" Now everybody is buying protein shake. All this all this confusion, going too much into it. I know there are these yoga girls in the West. I saw a few of them. They make their own almond milk. It's a huge process. It takes a lot of time, and if you wanted to put one student wanted to make me a coffee with almond milk. I said, no, you take an entire day to make your almond milk. You please have your almond milk. Just give me normal milk or without milk. It doesn't matter. So they go into too much. Then there is this independence with food, then community living. So they create a healthy parallel samsara. you know this all these new age groups, yoga groups, it's not wrong, it's beautiful. So they're trying to come back to dharma. So it is a commitment to dharma. We should not confuse a lifestyle that is devoted to moksha, liberation in the form of knowledge, is not the same as the lifestyle that is devoted to organic food, uh, community living, alternative solutions for everyday problems, and all these things, which usually these health committed community, the health food, the special diets and all that. So this is not non-GMO. All these movements, that and this should not be confused. It has absolutely no connection to a lifestyle like that. Basically, we have to ensure that the food is sattvic. But if you have become a renunciant, a lot of those rules come down. You make a lifestyle that more or less makes some sattvic food to land on your plate. For example, you are not supposed to beg meat. You are not sannyasi is not supposed to eat meat. Okay, so you don't go and beg in front of a biryani shop. So there are rules where you should beg only in the house of dvijas, like that. You have a lot of rules. So that usually takes care of the food. And if your local culture is educated in how to take care of sadhus, how to take care of monks, like how the state of Uttarakhand, for example, in North India, there is a huge culture where the Hindus know how to take care of monks. In South India, it's all gone. But they teach from the childhood. I once went for a walk with one Swamiji, and he took me to the local village near Vasishta Guha. He took me to the local village and see, I will show you something. And then he went in front of a house, and there was a very small child just sitting and playing there in the. Uh, Nobody told the child anything. That very tiny child, it's probably 3 years old, 2.5 to 3 years old, and because of malnourishment, the boy, it is looking like a doll, little doll, so small. It came, walking in a very funny way, how children walk, and came and did namaskar to the Swamiji 4 times. Nobody told the child. It's not even 3-year-old child. It came and did 4 namaskars to that Swamiji, because there is a tradition. They say a sannyasi, one should do 4 times namaskar, because he is the Turyashrama. Brahmacharya first, Grahastha second, Vanaprastha third, Sannyasa fourth. Because he belongs to the fourth ashrama, and to the uh, and they are devoted to the self, which is considered as the fourth, that which is not touched by the waking dream and sleep, Turya. So because they belong to the Turya ashrama, we are supposed to do 4 namaskars to a sannyasi. That is one. On some areas they follow that. So in this child, it's a baby, came and did 4 namaskars to that Swami. He said, see how they train them from childhood. So the entire culture is geared towards taking care of sadhus. So they know what to do, what not to do. So when you go and live there, you also learn how to behave like a sadhu, because the whole culture supports you, and there is an entire support system. But not everywhere in the world people are lucky, right? And not every culture is tuned to that. So we take the spirit of this teaching. So if one is not living one is not part of a society that is devoted to the culture that supports sannyasa ashrama, the institution of sannyasa, the culture is not educated, the society is not educated to support the institution of sannyasa, avoid being in that culture, or create a setup that will help you to that will make it possible for you to maintain as many principles as possible from sannyasa. Now, that has to be decided on an individual basis. Each one has to think for themselves, discuss with their guru, see the problems of, the practical realities of the time and the place. Desha Kala Patra, they say, So the practical realities and the limitations of the individual, of the place, of the time, and all that. And then one has to take these principles in and try to create conditions that will facilitate as much nishta or abidance as possible in the essential points behind this principle. So when you say Sitoshnadi Vishakyatam, learn to bear, endure the pairs of opposites like heat and cold, it means develop endurance by the practice of Hatha Yoga. Atha Dvandvan Anabhigataha Yoga Sutra says by the practice of Hatha Yoga, a practice of asanas, one is not disturbed by the pairs of opposites. It's not only physical like heat and cold, it is also the emotional reactions that coming from inside, that programmed psychosomatic reactions, all those reactive natures in us will start slowing down because of the quietness in the indriyas, because of the quietness in the prana, and because of the relaxation in the nerves. So what they call as the vagus nerve and the psoas muscles and the body memory and all that we say. So at that level, at the psychosomatic level, there will be a certain kind of a peace established by the practice of hatha yoga, and that makes this endurance to the pairs of opposites easier and more natural, and one can stretch one's limit a little bit. So one has to condition the body and the mind gradually. Don't do sudden things. All your life you have taken bath only in warm water. Overnight, don't switch to cold water. See what you can. Maybe you start in summer, and when you in your noon time shower, if you take a shower in the noon time, make it a cold warm water, and change the warm water to cold water like that. And then in the food you can try to cut. There are some very specific kind of tasty foods that we crave for. Each one can think for themselves, and they say tell yourself that I'm not going to have that for 1 month. Or every time you sit for eating, you look for a certain kind of a side dish or a combination or a certain level of salt, a certain level of spice, but that is not necessary. That is only for making the experience nice and pleasant. Without that, you can eat the food. The food is eatable. Maybe it's a little bland. It's not very stimulating. So once in a while, watch the tendency. You want to do it. You want to alter the food that is on your plate. Don't alter. Just eat. Sometimes your mom or whoever is cooking, your partner or whatever, they forgot to add salt to the soup. Just have without salt. Doesn't matter. Then, hey, they'll say, I didn't put salt. Why you did not tell me? Doesn't matter. It's there in the plate. Eat. That's it. You don't have to make a big deal about it. Go and tell everybody, today is Paurnami, so I will have food without salt. The whole family and your whole neighborhood, all your friends, everybody knows today you are eating without salt. Make a big deal about it. There are these grannies, who make a big deal about their anushtana, their ritualistic practices or whatever they do. There are these highly ritualistically committed grannies who have these austerity practices, japa, puja, and all that. But when they are doing it for an identity crisis, when they are doing it from a space of um, wanting some recognition and respect and all that, they make a big deal about it. The whole family is on the toes to make sure that their rules are taken care. Avoid all that. And the next one is relevant to this. Natu vritha vakyam samuccharyata. Don't speak words that are useless. If something cannot be changed, don't talk about it unless it's absolutely essential. So this can be one, this can be one meaning. And also from the point of view of commitment to self-knowledge, here in this context, it means do not talk any other subject other than what is immediately relevant for self-knowledge, either for yourself or for if you are teaching it for the students. There is also another version, Samakaranyam, natu vrita vakyam samakaranyam. Do not listen to useless speech is also there. So we can include both. Neither listen to useless speech or, I mean, take it in. If somebody is shouting around you, you cannot prevent it from coming and falling in your ears, but do not process it and take it in. Don't actively listen to useless speech, gossips, etc. And do not actively engage in participating in useless conversations and discussing about subjects that are not concerned with self knowledge or that help you to stay established in the self knowledge. For example, you might see people who are devoted to Vedanta, they are discussing, logic, tarka, logic, and then certain commentaries, this commentary versus that commentary. So, if it is done in the spirit of clearing the doubts, if it is done in the spirit of strengthening their commitment to the right understanding, then it is all right. But if it is done in the spirit of proving one superiority over the other, that's where that is why this is dismissed in the previous sutra itself, in the previous shloka itself. Buddha Janair Vada Parityajadam, give up arguing with wise people. So this one here it means in in an even more serious way in everyday life, just don't talk about things that are not connected with self knowledge at all. No, not even arguing. Forget arguing. Don't even talk or listen to things that are not connected with self knowledge. Somebody comes and talks about astrology. So we can see some, there are people who think nowadays because of the confusion in sannyasa dharma, and there are monks who are giving astrology predictions. There is one Swami in YouTube who does astrology. Proper Vedanta Swami, Shankara tradition Vedanta Swami. He does astrology in YouTube. It's pathetic. Swami is not supposed to even look at astrology, right? So, because of this, what happens? Because of indulging in uh, giving mystic solutions to people, common man. So the common man is very disturbed. The common man is constantly looking for some kind of a relief from all his troubles. Poor guy is all the time in some trouble or the other. He is all the time looking for some kind of an immediate relief. So there is a huge shraddha in common people that these monks and yogis, they have some special powers. They understand certain subtle things that we don't understand. So they will solve our problem in an extraordinary way. And all that is there, and then these people, they feed into, while genuine masters, they don't encourage this at all. They will always bring you back to Shastra and Dharma. Whatever solution you ask, it will be based on Shastra or Dharma. And even because of their power of their grace that flows through them, if something gets solved in an apparently miraculous way, they will completely deny it. They'll just say it's all because of Bhagavan, it's because of your Shraddha, it's all God's grace, I did not do anything. So they will not encourage any mystic stuff at all. So Vrita Vakyam here can also mean, people come, encouraging conversations about what kind of prayer for this problem, what kind of prayer for that problem, all this karma kanda stuff, all these is you are supposed to go and ask a priest. So here what we can take from this teaching, that give up, should not indulge in, speak or hear useless words or sentences, which means that are not connected with self knowledge. So when we are going to a monk, don't go to a renunciate or a person who is committed to self knowledge or Vedanta. Don't go to that person with everyday problems to solve. That person is not a magician. Don't go with that intent that somehow, you may take the blessings. See, I'm having some trouble, so please bless me. That's okay. But don't indulge in, try to expect all kinds of solutions from, you discuss your medical problem with that Swami, you discuss your career problem with the Swami, your relationship with the Swami, and, you want the Swami to look at your horoscope. All these things are supposed to be done with priests, not with swamis, not with monks. So there is a huge misunderstanding nowadays. Anybody who lives, for example, there are these professional priests nowadays. They have started projecting themselves, calling themselves swami. You know, there are a lot of professional priests who are giving YouTube videos telling Swami, because Swami means master. Anybody can call them Swami, call oneself Swami. But what happens is, socially, it creates a huge confusion. A common man is confused between who is a monk, who is a priest. He puts everybody in that one bundle called, a spiritual person, God man, or whatever. And then he goes with the same attitude to everybody. So here we have to understand that we have to clearly distinguish whom we are approaching for the purpose of self-knowledge. Mahapurusha Samshraya, what we study in Viveka Chudamani, Manushuddham, Mumukshutvam, Mahapurusha Samshraya. These three are obtained only with the grace of Ishvara, Devanugraha Hetupam. Like that it comes in Viveka Chudam. So that Mahapurusha, when you go to a Mahapurusha, the person who is established in and is capable of facilitating in you self-knowledge, don't expect that person to encourage other discussions. Do not go with other topics to that person. Right? While that person is also committed, we should also do our part in facilitating that commitment. At the same time, we should also use that opportunity for us to stick to that. Stick to that most important point, which is commitment to gaining self-knowledge. That jignasatva, our desire to know the self, we can stay committed to that when we go in front of an initiate, a master who is there to teach the self-knowledge, and not indulge in other things. Also, in another angle, what we can say, every talk other than the talk about the self, that Shravanam, Katanam, Anyonya Prabodham, they say, to talk or listen about it, talk about it, and to share the knowledge about the self. Only that, nothing else. So only that is useful. Only that is useful, which helps you to liberate yourself from ignorance. Other than that, everything else is only compounding the problem of my bondage and ignorance, and the pattern of struggle and birth and death, what Sri Patanjali Maharshi calls as klesha and karma. So, only that which liberates me from klesha and karma is useful. Everything, and that is self knowledge. And other than that, everything is useless, because if you are the if you are the boundless infinite supreme being, if you are the boundless infinite supreme being, the only one, what can be useful for you? Is there anything that can improve the self? Can anything that can improve the atma, your reality cannot be improved. You are already the infinite in every aspect. That being the case, any kind of indulgence to obtain anything that is limited is only a compromise on what you already are. So it is useless. Hence, a person who wants to attain the highest, Amurdasya Yesha Setuhu, this is the bridge that helps you to cross over to immortality, where completely giving up any other words or talk or discussions that are not pertaining to seeing that one supreme self which alone is. Shitoshnadi Vishakyatam Natu Vrita Vakyam Sam Ucharyatam. In Shitoshnadi Vishakyatam, bearing the pairs of opposites, we can also include success, failure, whatever we do as a. There is no success failure discussion for a sadhu, but when we are taking the teaching to us, we can bring that what we call as nishkamya karma. So developing endurance to the pairs of opposites at the physical level and at the psychosomatic level, hatha yoga will help. And at the emotional level, what we call as pratipaksha bhavana will help. And at the attitude level, ishvara pranidhana, surrendering and receiving every experience of life, every result of our action as prasada from ishvara, prasada buddhi. When we practice that as a yogi, that will help us to develop this uh, ability to endure the pairs of opposites later, because these are all various habits that you create at the functional level, at the level of the organism. So you do an entire rewiring. You are hardwired for reward and punishment. Our brain is hardwired for reward and punishment in various levels. So we have to completely rewire our circuits through the practice of yoga. That will help us to develop that natural kind of endurance where we don't lose balance. You don't have to struggle. The struggle component will be less. Then what happens? It becomes very easy to focus on the contemplative side of self knowledge instead of constantly struggling with the natural mind and the natural reactions that keep coming from us. So the importance is given to capitalizing on whatever sadhana that has been done before, and creating that organic sense of stability, and practicing that inner silence and commitment both at the attitude level and the functional level to the self. So that's what the shloka is. The next shloka is the last one, the fifth shloka of Sadhana Panchakam, which we will see in the next class. Ekante Sukhamasyatam. It begins like that, right? So with that last shloka, we will complete Sadhana Panchakam, hopefully in the next class. If there are any questions, you may ask. Otherwise, we can finish the class. One thing I noted in the Sadhana Panchakam, Viveka Chudamani, in all the texts that Sri Adi Shankaracharya has given, you will not see a single line that talks about powers, siddhis or mystic powers or supernatural accomplishments. Not a single word you will see anywhere. Altered states of consciousness. The entire discussion and the teaching and the recommendations, the practices, everything is based on simple, normal, common sense level living. You are not expected to have an extraordinary physical body that, like how you read in the Kriya Yoga books, the body, the golden body, the indestructible body. Nothing. You will not see a single thing like this, either as a adhikaritvam, as a needed qualification for self knowledge, nor as a consequence of self knowledge. It's very important. You are not expected to have all these kundalini, siddhis, and all those things. Absolutely nothing. You don't have to have any psychic powers. You don't have to have any special altered states of consciousness. Simple commitment to knowledge, which you operate with your manana and nididhyasana on the basic experiences of waking, dream, and sleep. Basic, normal, everyday experience of waking, dream, and sleep. Analyzing that in the light of the teachings of Vedanta is enough. All you need is a sattvika buddhi. If you see the adhikaritvam, the fourfold qualifications, viveka, vairagya, mumukshutva, samadhi, shatka sampatti, there is absolutely nothing supernatural there. Shitoshnadi vishakyatam, bear the pairs of opposites at heat and cold, does not mean you should be able to walk with a loincloth in the, in a Tapovan ice glacier. They show this yogi in the Tapovan glacier. Indian army caught the yogi walking with loincloth and Tapovan glacier. Then there is another guy who is putting videos of him meditating in the middle of the ice. with just dhoti and a top. He's covered in eyes and meditating. There's another guy sitting in front of Kedarnath. So this is all drama. Shastra does not recommend any of this as either necessary, nor as neither as necessary nor as sufficient. And in fact, if at all it talks about it, it talks about powers, psychic powers, and mystic things only as a distraction and as an unnecessary thing that one should not go behind. So if you see this entire recommendation, one, we understand a sannyasi or a monk or a person who even is self realized is not expected to be supernatural. So do not expect anything supernatural from any teacher to whom you go for Vedanta, for self knowledge. Self realization not equal to psychic powers. There is no connection between this and that. That is an entire thing that comes under karma kanda and yoga. It is a karma. Now, doing some action with the body and the mind to have an altered state of the body or the mind comes under karma. It does not come under jnana. So that is a completely different thing altogether. That should be categorized as a purushartha, as a goal, a human accomplishment that comes either under dharma, artha, or kama category. It does not come under the moksha category. Dharma, righteousness; artha, wealth; kama, desire. Either the person is doing it for some kind of insecurity, so they want psychic powers, or they want to have fun, they're having psychic powers, or they want to protect dharma or something else and they want to do something for the society, so it comes under dharma. But it does not come under moksha. Pursuit of supernatural abilities comes under karma, it does not come under jnana. There is a very clear distinction between karma and jnana. If you read the introduction to any Upanishad or any main text in the Prasthana Traya by Sri Shankaracharya ji, everywhere he does khandana or dismissal of karma as a means to liberation. So, any karma or any result of karma, action or any result of any action, be it natural or supernatural, terrestrial or celestial, all of that are limited, time bound, or the result, or within the realm of Maya, within the realm of Avarana and Vikshepa, within the realm of ignorance, and it's only a distraction from knowledge. So, there is absolutely no expectation from you to achieve anything supernatural in order to perfect self knowledge, nor we need to nor we need the presence of any of the supernatural powers with the masters or the swamis or the gurus we meet in our life. When we go to them for guidance, we need not expect any supernatural interference from them. Their knowledge of shastra and their commitment to that knowledge that gives them a sattvic mind that allows them to guide us properly according to the Shastra, that is enough. This is a great unwritten message that is being conveyed in this. All this confusion with mystic stuff is a later confusion that came, and it all comes only because we have not studied and analyzed properly. Right. So this is one of very important main hidden message in this. It is not told directly, but it is understood, and I feel I should insist on that because there is a huge confusion regarding this. That is another topic entirely. Going to a mystic man to solve problem is another topic entirely, and it has nothing to do with self knowledge. And for self knowledge, it is not necessary and it is not sufficient, and it is only a distraction. Please remember this in mind. And when we are going into renunciate lifestyle or commit to a full, you don't have to master, you know, some decent level of hatha yoga is good enough. Some decent level of ability to sit and meditate for 1 hour is good enough. Basic sattvic mind. What is most important is attitude training. Attitude training is everything. Attitude toward the experiences that come to you unsought, that happen according to prarabdha. Ability to handle that in the light of right knowledge. That is what is required. And when we understand this, all our efforts will be in the right direction. All our efforts in sadhana, the choice of sadhana, the way in which we do sadhana, the kind of attitude we maintain in our personal practice and study, and the attitude we maintain and what we ask from when we meet masters. So, all that will become very clear and right on track when we do discussions like this in Swadhyaya. So, as much as there is a nishta for a sannyasi, there is also a nishta for a person who should go to a sannyasi. right? So this is the message I wanted to insist on. There is a question from last class which was posted only now. I understand about the life of a sannyasi in regards with food. Piksha not to complicate the food attitude to the food as medicine and not aligned with taste. To avoid, how to avoid, sorry, the question is um, how to avoid confusions in learning to understand Vedanta and not to confuse oneself in daily practical application. Example, what if the half learnt one confuse or believe oneself as learnt and to become lazy, not caring to care for one's food or health and depend on others, and always wanting tasty food filling the bill, yes, and not ready to take commitments in personal life. So this is comes under dharma. This comes under the dharma of a brahmachari. So it's a totally different topic altogether, and it comes under the discussion under dharma. So that is all first taken care. By the time you are ready for Vedanta, all this should have been taken care. So if this is not taken care, the person is not adhikari. So the Vedanta will not work, right? So and considering one has learned and not taking, for example, believe oneself as learned and to become lazy, not uh, believing oneself to be learned means that person cannot be taught. So that person, unless somebody has a learning attitude, one cannot be taught. So one has to first understand what one has to learn. So if that person does not understand, he cannot be taught. So we have to wait until that person wakes up, hopefully not with a very rude shock. Maybe a decent level of shock can wake up that person one day. With God's grace, that person will get the right attitude. Yeah. So this is not to be confused with what we are talking about. Mm, the attitude towards food in Vedanta. The what we discuss about attitude towards food in Vedanta should not translate as carelessness for the discipline connected to food. That is commitment to eating sattvic food in the right quantity and all that, like we discussed in the Bhagavad Gita. So that is a dharma. So laziness in dharma, should not be the consequence of listening to these kind of things that are meant for a Vedantic. That is why who has already got the sadhana chatushtaya, titiksha, and everything, viveka, vairagya, everything, and then he has studied Vedanta, and now this is and also understood the truth. And now the lifestyle is given for that person who has already understood the truth, for a jnani, right? For the person who has understood the truth and is already liberated. So this is the lifestyle that is meant for the person to be established in the knowledge fully, to be a jivan mukta. Now this is, we are talking about, we are talking about something at the PhD level. So we are not talking about what is told for an LKG kid. For the LKG kid may be asked to write on a, until you learn the handwriting, you are asked to write on a, when we were kids, there used to be these notebooks with lines. There will be the double line notebook, and then there is a single line notebook. Then there is notebook with margin. Then slowly it goes to without margin. Then finally you are allowed to write on a plain notebook without the lines. But you have already practiced the writing on the lines. Writing on the notebook without lines, even there you will be able to write on a straight line because it comes in the body memory. You already learned. So in the beginning, one has to follow all the disciplines, but with the spirit of why I mentioned that excessive indulgence in, too much preferences and fastidiousness is not to lose track of why I am following the diet discipline. So the diet discipline for yoga to cultivate the readiness for Vedanta is very different from the diet discipline that is meant for a person going to a gym or for losing weight or for putting on muscles or for a sports person. The purpose of the diet is different. The purpose of the diet for a jignasu or a mumukshu is different from the diet meant for some other person. So if that person is lazy and careless and all that, is God bless the guy. That's all, guy or girl, whoever it is. So that's all we can say. Yes, yes. The question is from last week. Yes, I remember addressing this question. I don't know if I addressed it fully or not. So since the question was presented again, did I answer the question? What we discuss in Vedanta, what we discuss as recommendations for a person committed to Vedanta is for a person who has already gone through all the discipline, and for that person, the disciplines and the various practices should not become a drag, should not become a distracting factor. It is something like I use a ladder to climb to the terrace, and after I climb to the terrace, I don't have to carry the ladder with me. The ladder has done its job, so I can go on. Right? Don't hold on to the ladder. We are discussing something like that, but not for the person who is down. Oh, he is walking in the terrace without the ladder. Why should I climb the ladder? He's not climbing the ladder, but he already climbed the ladder and went to the terrace, right? So you have to use the ladder if you want to be free from the need for the ladder. In the same way, if I want to be free from, if I want to be a gunatita who, uh, based on knowledge, if I have to become free from the trap of all the gunas as a mukta, as a jivan mukta, so I have to go through the process that prepares me for that. And the process of preparing is the subject matter of yoga, subject matter of dharma, subject matter of all the things that makes you a adhikari. So until one is an adhikari, the talk is different. After one is an adhikari, as a jigyasu, one is learning, the talk is different. After one has understood and is only committing to a lifestyle that is helping in nididhyasana, the concept is different. But all the thing that we are talking about sannyasis is for us to take inspiration from that. It is not, see, ultimately, it is to understand that the tradition is ultimately geared towards absolute freedom. It's not a constant binding thing. It is not a set of do's and don'ts to please some God sitting in heaven. So it's extremely different from anything that we know popularly as spiritual life. So it's very unique. So in order to understand and appreciate that, and also to learn how to conduct ourselves with masters who are devoted to that domain of knowledge, who are devoted to that way of life, how to conduct ourselves with them, and how to benefit from them. To understand all that, we are discussing this. So these points are not fun. For example, pratidinam bhiksha aushadam bhujyatam does not apply to any of us here, because none of us are sannyasis, none of us are living on bhiksha. We are all having bank accounts and everything, and it's an active life, so it just does not apply. So when you see a sannyasi who is dependent on bhiksha, he is not going to ask for tasty food. So do what you can, do your best, don't make it difficult for that person, make it easy. But the person is devoted to self knowledge, the person is devoted to self control. So when you give bhiksha to a sannyasi, be decent, in the way you give bhiksha. Don't abuse that person's renunciation or that person's non-involvement, and don't come from a space of laziness and carelessness. Understand the difficulties and understand the seriousness of sannyasa when you go and serve a sannyasi. So something like that. Yes. Okay, so with this I will finish the class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Thank you.